Administrative Director of the non-profit organization Haiti Children, Cheryl Ritchie, says none of the caregivers who arrived in Jamaica with the group of orphans from Haiti in March have fled the mustard seed facility in Monique St. Anne. Her assertion follows reports on Wednesday that several of the caregivers had been unaccounted for. But in an interview Thursday morning, Mustard Seed maintains that the caregivers have not returned. Mahir Stewart has our story.
Executive Director of Mustard Seed Communities Jamaica, Darcy Tullow Williams, told Nationwide at 5 yesterday that the Haitians left the Jacob's Ladder facility in St. Anne with their belongings.
So is this true that 10 of the 16 Asians who were being housed at Jacob's Ladder as caregivers for the Asian orphans since March have gone missing along with their luggage and personal belongings? Is that true?
Yes, they were packed up and removed from the facility.
When you say packed up and really removed from the...
They left.
Oh, you mean they absconded is more accurate to say.
All I know, my dear sir, is that they were picked up, they took their luggage, and they left.
Consultant for Development at Mustard Seed Communities, David Silvera, says the matter was reported to the Passport Immigration and Citizenship Agency, PICA.
It's our staff that's caring for the Haitian children. 10 of their 16 have gone. I am quite comfortable with the word you use.
You said a Saturday. Could you be a bit more specific with that for me, please?
I think it was like maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. I'd have to look back and see. I'm not exactly sure, but I believe it was on a Saturday.
And when did you report it to the authority?
It was reported to PICA.
Yeah, when?
It was reported to PICA within a day or two of it happening.
So why not the same day if they absconded?
Well, it was weekend. It was a Saturday. We didn't know exactly what was happening, and so by Monday we said, well, these people haven't returned, haven't come back, and we reported it on the Monday morning, I believe it was.
It's not known who picked up the caregivers. The caregivers are reportedly mostly males in their 20s and 30s. However, Miss Ritchie told Nationwide News that the caregivers have not fled. She says the caregivers are working on what she described as a week-on, week-off shift rotation. According to Miss Ritchie, it was those listed on the second shift who went off-site with permission. She claims they've also returned for their shifts and are currently on the Jacob's Ladder compound. The Haiti Children's Administrative Director says it was one of the nurses who left the facility with the group members, but they're all back at the location and working. She reasoned that it seemed Mustard Seed and one of its nurses had started drafting up a separate shift schedule which contradicted rotation usually written by the Haitian caregivers. But in an interview with our news center Thursday morning, Mustard Seed says the caregivers have not returned. Mustard Seed clarifies that it is 9 and not 10 caregivers who have not returned to the Monique-based facility. According to Mustard Seed, the caregivers have now been gone for about 11 or 12 days. Mahiri Stewart for Nationwide News.
Chief Justice Brian Sykes says the combative approach of some Caribbean governments on the judiciary's perceived softness on crime is unproductive. Speaking at the opening ceremony of the Chief Justices and Heads of Judiciaries of the Caribbean Conference 2024 on Wednesday, Justice Sykes said the development of an institutional framework for dialogue would be more appropriate. He says all three branches of government, the judiciary, the executive, and the legislature, while separate, are jointly engaged in governance.
Within the last 2 years, there have been statements emanating from heads of government attacking the judiciary and what is perceived to be their softness concerning the issue of crime. Engaging in a shouting match with the executive is not necessarily the most productive way of addressing the issue. Rather, the development of an institutional framework, to which I referred earlier, where the heads of judiciaries can speak with the heads of government, would be more appropriate, and it has become increasingly necessary as all of us, the judiciary, the executive, and the legislature, are jointly engaged in the business of governance.
Chief Justice Sykes adds that positive interaction among the three bodies will only redound to the benefit of citizens.
Framed in this way, it is a recognition that the judiciary and the executive and parliament are part of the governance structure. And while we are separate and have supremacy in our sphere, We are not separated in governance, and we must interact with each other to produce effective governance for our peoples.
Chief Justice Brian Sykes. Meanwhile, Justice Sykes says that to ensure viability, Caribbean justice systems must be shaped by an acknowledgement of the region's historical and social contexts without the injection of political influence.
The justice we deliver must be informed and advised by our historical and social context. Our legal systems, if they are to be viable and respected and enjoy the trust and confidence of the people they serve, must be in contact with the pulse and feelings and mores of the country. Legal systems and the laws which we developed must reflect what is good and wholesome about our society and build upon those, and out of those will come the legal principles we apply to our day-to-day relationships. And when I speak of political context, I am not to be understood as saying we are to embrace political partisanship. Judiciaries are not partisan.
Chief Justice Sykes says there also needs to be an understanding by the judiciary that parliaments are seeking to rebuild societies that are emerging from a colonial past that was inequitable.
As judiciaries, we need to understand that our executives and our parliaments are trying to rebuild societies that are emerging from colonialism and slavery. They are trying to build more just, equitable, and cohesive societies, the words coming from our Vision 2030 document. It is not surprising then that when you look across the region, a significant amount of legislation passed in the various countries are to address economic and social problems that citizens face in the particular country.
Chief Justice Brian Sykes, he was speaking Wednesday evening at the opening ceremony of the Chief Justices and Heads of Judiciaries of the Caribbean Conference at the AC Marriott in Kingston. Now, Legal and Constitutional Affairs Minister Marlene Malahou-Fort has questioned the rationale behind suggestions that members of the diaspora be allowed to sit in government. Minister Malahou-Fort was speaking Wednesday during a plenary session on constitutional reform on the last day of the 10th Biennial Jamaica Diaspora Conference at the Montego Bay Convention Centre in St. James. Dana Davey reports.
Minister Malahou-Fort says the proposal of diaspora members serving in government is a point of view she is still trying to understand fully.
So tell me, ladies and gentlemen, and this is where our engagement will be better, what it is that is so special for Jamaicans living abroad to be in the Parliament of Jamaica instead of having your interests represented. I'm trying to understand it a little more because I know Jamaicans are interested and successive governments have created opportunities for Jamaicans to engage, and the medium of the Diaspora Conference is one such.
Minister Malahou-Fort was responding to a question from lawyer and former Diaspora Advisory Board member Marlon Hill, who was moderating the session on constitutional reform. Hill wanted to know if there is an opportunity in the continuing constitutional reform process to think of other ways in which diaspora engagement could manifest itself in Parliament. Malahou-Fort says people with responsibility for passing laws should be subject to those laws.
When you have the responsibility for passing laws, you really have to be subject to those laws. When you have the responsibility for leading government, you have to be subject to the conditions that you create for everybody else in the country to live under. So it's a kind of responsibility that is so special and unique that we have to be clear about the criteria for holding the office. And this is not to say there isn't a proper place for all Jamaicans to make their contribution to Jamaica. This is the conversation I think that we should have to bring some clarity on.
Meanwhile, international constitutional law expert and member of the Constitutional Reform Committee, Professor Richard Albert, who is a Jamaican citizen by descent, addressed another issue of concern. Leader of the opposition People's National Party, Mark Golding, who is a Jamaican citizen by birth and a UK citizen by descent, has been at odds with aspects of the committee's report. Mr. Golding recently made the call to Prime Minister Andrew Holness to meet with him to discuss the matters that have caused the impasse while speaking at a PNP meeting on Saturday. Professor Albert says a mutual understanding between the government and opposition is imperative to completing the reform process.
When the parties are aligned, that leads to success. When the parties are at loggerheads, that does not augur well for the future of the reform process. On the committee, we worked very well together under the leadership of the minister, but there have been some murmurs and some rumblings off of the committee that I think are problematic and that we should be able to address, hopefully under the leadership of the minister as well as the two principals, the Prime Minister and the Leader of Opposition working together to bring the country to where everyone wants it to be, which is to become a republic. We all agree on that.
Dana Davey for Nationwide News.
Mayor of Kingston, Andrew Swaby, says the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation, KSAMC, is committed to fighting corruption within the municipality. Swaby says within his first 100 days in office, he has implemented the public signing of contracts by its members. The move is a means of mitigating perceived corrupt practices or activities. Swaby says it also serves to improve staff morale.
From the outset of my tenure, I made a solemn commitment to transparency, accountability, and to mitigate any form of corruption within the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation. The first step towards this started with the public signing of contracts, and that was done on May 9th, which was the first of a kind in the history of the municipal corporation. Information regarding these contracts have been posted on the KSAMC website, and it's our intention to post other contracts as soon as they are signed. Our next step is to partner with the Integrity Commission to host a series of workshops designed to educate councillors and staff on anti-corruption measures and principles of good governance.
Mayor Swaby notes that the initiative will demonstrate the corporation's unwavering commitment to upholding integrity and accountability, while demonstrating its dedication to providing the highest standard of governance to the community. Speaking at the municipality's quarterly media briefing on Thursday, Mayor Swaby says the KSAMC has also committed to promoting a cleaner city with the launch of the Cleaner Kingston initiative.
My commitment to a cleaner Kingston started with a meeting with Executive Director of the National Solid Management Authority, Mr. Audley Gordon. We discussed timely garbage collection, sanitation, and waste management. Recognizing the crucial partnership between the KSAMC and National Solid Management Authority, we are committed to executing the vision of a cleaner Kingston. Shortly after meeting with the National Solid Management Authority, I have launched a Cleaner Kingston initiative, which in its first phase focused on St. William Grant Park and the parade area.
Andrew Swaby, Mayor of Kingston. The youth arm of the JLP Young Jamaica is calling on the PNP Standard Bearer for Southeast St. Catherine, Dr. Alfred Dawes, to address the Jamaican people regarding his claims of being poisoned due to a politically motivated plot. Young Jamaica says Dr. Dawes' decision to withhold this information for almost a year casts serious doubts on his integrity and trustworthiness. In a statement on Thursday, the JLP youth arm noted that media reports in July last year initially quoted Dr. Dawes as strongly denying that he was poisoned amid a dispute over his candidacy in Southeast St. Catherine. However, Young Jamaica says in a reversal this month, Dr. Dawes admitted that he had indeed been poisoned. The group says Dawes' initial denial was said to protect his party. Young Jamaica says it believes that a public figure willing to conceal the commission of a serious crime for nearly a year, only to reveal it when politically convenient, simply cannot be trusted. Young Jamaica says it is also calling on Dr. Dawes to confirm whether he has fulfilled his legal obligation to file a formal report with the police regarding his suspicion of an attempt on his life or that of his PNP associate. According to the JLP youth arm, it is imperative that Dr. Dawes clears the air about the real reason for his initial denial and subsequent admission of being poisoned. Tourism Minister Edmund Bartlett has hailed the late Pulse founder, Kingsley Cooper, as a visionary and pioneer in the fashion, entertainment, and lifestyle industries. Cooper died in the United States on Tuesday evening. He was 71. It's understood that he died from complications from a ruptured appendix. Cooper, an attorney at law by training, founded Pulse in 1980 alongside fellow attorney Hilary Phillips. The brand grew to become the biggest and most prestigious modeling agency in the Caribbean and achieved sustained international success over the years. In a statement on Wednesday, Minister Bartlett said Cooper's innovative venture in the creative arts, particularly fashion and modeling, has led to numerous outstanding Jamaican models appearing in prestigious publications worldwide. He says Cooper's impact has extended into the tourism sector, with the establishment of the Pulse Boutique Hotels, which offers unique and luxurious experiences to visitors. Minister Bartlett has also hailed the other significant contributions Cooper made to the tourism sector. He says Cooper's business acumen and commitment to brand Jamaica have been greatly beneficial, enabling significant improvements in destination marketing. Minister Bartlett says that the entire tourism family mourns deeply the passing of one of Jamaica's outstanding sons. In regional and international news now, regional news, Guyana is set to provide more than $40,000 cash grants to school children across the country. The financial aid is expected to start next Monday. The country's education ministry will begin distributing a $45,000 cash grant to over 200,000 children enrolled in both public and private schools. The initiative forms part of the Because We Care program and aims to ease the financial burden on families. It will also include a voucher for school uniforms and supplies. To qualify for the grant, students must be actively registered and attending school and must have returned their textbooks, ensuring they're in good standing. The distribution process is scheduled to span a 2-week period and is part of a broader strategy to increase the cash grant up to $50,000 in stages. International news, violent clashes between police and protesters have broken out in Nairobi, Kenya on Thursday as government vote on a controversial finance bill. Parliament has been sealed off since this morning, with the roads around it blocked as lawmakers debate the finance bill inside. Anger continues over proposed tax hikes in the East African nation that has struggled with rising living costs. The government has faced a backlash and protests since Tuesday over the controversial bill. They've also been forced to amend the piece of legislation after dozens of demonstrators rallied outside the country's parliament building. Among the taxes suspended was a 16% value-added tax on bread and a 2.5% tax on motor vehicles. Mass arrests were recorded in Nairobi earlier on Tuesday, with more than 200 people, including journalists, covering the protest, detained by the police. The authorities have attempted to break up the demonstrations with tear gas and water cannons.